Well, there it is. The Broncos are releasing Russell Wilson in a move that's going to generate an $85 million dead cap hit. We're going to react to this news. We'll talk about Russell Wilson's near 2-year stint. Wasn't even 2 full calendar years in Denver. And then I'm going to run through 5 quarterback targets that could start for the Broncos in week 1 of 2024. But let's begin by going back to the origin of this story, which was a tweet from Ian Rappaport that said the Broncos are moving on from quarterback Russell Wilson, closing a tough chapter for the team and allowing coach Sean Payton and Wilson to start fresh. My initial reaction when I saw this news was, wow, they did a little bit earlier than I expected, but I fully expected them to move on from Russell Wilson, especially after the Combine when I think there was a slight slip-up with Sean Payton at the podium saying, I saw a meme about a fan wearing a jersey with a bunch of quarterback names crossed out, and we hope the next one we get right. It's like, the next one? What about the current one? And I think that was the ultimate telltale sign of, if you weren't 100% certain that Denver was going to move on from Russell Wilson, it's 100% certain now. But let's at least read the statement from George Payton and Sean Payton on moving on from Russell Wilson. They say, we spoke with Russell Wilson today to inform him of his release after the start of the new league year. On behalf of the Broncos, we thank Russell for his contributions and dedication to our team and community while wishing him the best as he continues his career. As we move forward, we are focused on building the strongest team possible for the 2024 season and beyond. We are excited to improve this offseason and will have the flexibility to get better through the draft and free agency. What fucking flexibility are they talking about? Guys, there's an $85 million dead cap hit coming. Now, the expectation is Denver will make this a post-June 1st release, and this is the most likely split up of the dead cap hit, but they could flip-flop it a little bit. They could put much more of that tab on 2024 and reduce the 2025 tab. I'd personally rather they just eat all $85 million in 2024. This team is not going to be a playoff winning team, barring a miracle quarterback pick in the draft out of nowhere, like a Brock Purdy situation. So why not just take it on the chin this year and really get set and loaded for 2025? But it appears that Denver is deciding to do a post-June 1st designation release, which means they're going to split up the money a little bit. Now, you guys probably know where I stand on this, but I do want to get your opinion. Do you agree with the Broncos cutting Russell Wilson? My 2 cents, and more than just 2 cents, it's a 10, 12-minute video, is Russell Wilson was definitely a problem last season. This offense was inept the first 3 quarters. They could not push the ball down the field very well. It was a lot of check down passes from Russell Wilson. He was not operating Sean Payton's system well. All of that is true. But I just can't quite wrap my head around Sean Payton sitting down with the Walton Penner group going, listen, if you guys will pay this person $85 million to not be on our team anymore, I can make this football team better. It really makes you wonder. I mean, how much of this divorce between Russell Wilson and Sean Payton was due to personally just not getting along very well, right? Sean Payton's first month or so on the job, he went public and threw previous coaches under the bus. He told Russell Wilson, stop kissing babies. It didn't seem like these two were going to get along, or maybe not even get along, but just be a good fit from very early on in Sean Payton's tenure as the Denver Broncos head coach. And that brings me back to this point. Who are you going to find that is so much better it's worthy of an $85 million dead cap hit? No one has told me a good reason why Denver couldn't have not just held on to Russell Wilson, still drafted a quarterback, had that rookie sit behind Russ, have that rookie take Russ's job the same way Russell Wilson took over a job in Seattle when he was a rookie. Have Russell Wilson and Jarrett Stidham and a rookie all duke it out for the starting job. But what was the con of holding on to Russell Wilson? Now, once you benched him, I don't think there was a way you could have brought him back in that locker room. And so that all goes back to the origin of the reason why Denver moved on from Russell Wilson was he would not change the language in his contract to take out injury designation and guarantees. And when Denver was more or less eliminated from the postseason after losing to the Patriots on Christmas Eve, they decided, well, the last thing we want to see happen is risk Russell Wilson getting hurt in 2 pretty much meaningless games, not technically, but essentially. and then be on the hook for more money in the future. And I can partially understand that, but man, pressure is on Sean Payton now because there is no one else to blame. I mean, Sean Payton is moving on from Russell Wilson. He got his way. He got ownership on board with this. This was not a, hey, I got to talk to George, see what he thinks about this move. No, this is a meeting with the higher-ups, Greg Penner and the rest of his crew, Rob Walton, and going, I want to move on from Russell Wilson. I know you just laid out all this money. He is going to get, Russell that is, $39 million in cash this year. And Sean Payton, power to him, convinced ownership, I know you're paying someone $39 million, but we can be better without him. That's a tough sell. And I don't think any other ownership group in the NFL would have gone with it. I think they would have told Sean Payton, suck it up and figure it out because that's what we are paying you to do as the head coach. But when you have the richest owners in the NFL, where you can combine the wealth of owner rich number 2, 3, and 4 and still have Denver at number 1 be bigger, $39 million, I guess, is just truly nothing to them. And that's got to be a really cool feeling. All right, we're going to look at my top 5 quarterback targets to start week 1 for 2024. But really quickly, if this offseason was not already important enough, it just got a lot more important right now. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Help us get to our next goal, 21,000 subscribers. So to put a bow on the Russell Wilson era before we start looking ahead here, we go back to the day he was traded, March 16th, 2024 or 2022, and we're not even quite 2 years removed from that date. And some highs, mostly lows, let's be honest, like especially that first year in Denver where it really felt like the Seahawks got away with highway robbery and they knew something that the rest of the NFL did not know, which was Russell Wilson was washed. But ultimately, I think everyone had their fair share of jokes and jabs Russ's direction, and he could be a bit of a cornball at times, but his goodbye message to Broncos country, I mean, it was filled with very personal and heartfelt messages. He called out teammates by name, talked about how much he loved Cortland Sutton and Garrett Bowles for always being there for him after every win or after every loss, even talking about the cafeteria staff and whatnot. So I think Russell Wilson was a very well-liked guy in the locker room. He might not be every coach's cup of tea, but I do wish him the best moving forward. He's going to take a veteran minimum salary, most likely. I don't see why he wouldn't, and start for another team in 2024. And the Broncos will be on the hook for about $37 to $38 million in cash for the upcoming season. But Russell Wilson, the era is done. Broncos country, let's die. All right, let's talk about some 2024 QB options before we send you guys on out of here. I think the most likely option is Jarrett Stidham. If I had to put money down on who's going to take the first snap for the Broncos in 2024, I think it's the guy who took the final snap in 2023. Remember, Denver signed Jarrett Stidham to a 2-year, $10 million contract after he had 2 starts with the Raiders the season prior. Sean Payton had an affinity for this guy, and I think he is going to go into training camp and OTAs and minicamp and all that stuff with Jarrett Stidham as his starting quarterback. But that could change throughout camp with a potential rookie, which brings us to option number 2, J.J. McCarthy. One of the biggest rumors / stories coming out of the NFL Combine was J.J. McCarthy is going to be a top 10 pick in this year's draft. Now, I don't think Denver has the ammunition to move up and get one of the top 3 quarterbacks, but I do believe if they really love J.J. McCarthy, I mean, you think about a team like the Falcons, for example, picking at number 8. What if Atlanta trades for Justin Fields? They may not need that 8th overall pick anymore, or they may not need the 8th overall pick anymore to get a quarterback like J.J. McCarthy, and maybe they're willing to move back to recoup a 2nd round, 3rd round draft pick that they used to get Justin Fields, So I think J.J. McCarthy definitely fits the mold of a Sean Payton-esque quarterback, a guy that's going to sit in the pocket, will take what the defense gives him, read the defense well. I know these are all very cliche, but I do think that's what Sean Payton is looking for in his next quarterback, and I think J.J. McCarthy checks a lot of those boxes. There's a big drop-off after these first 2 guys. Let me just start with that. But I think Jamus Winston could be in the mix, right? At one point, Sean Payton signed him in New Orleans to take over from Drew Brees once Brees retired. Ultimately, that didn't really pan out. And I don't think it didn't pan out because Jameis muffed it up. he went into the 2020, was it 2021 season? Yeah, remember when they beat the Packers week 1 in Jacksonville? And he lit it up. He threw 5 touchdown passes in that game. Unfortunately, a torn ACL later, a head coaching change, and ultimately Dennis Allen going with the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, kind of put the nail in the coffin for Jamus Winston's career in New Orleans. But I would not be surprised if Sean Payton goes, man, we could sign Jameis Winston for 1 year, $5 million, if that. Like, they're not going to have a huge budget to spend. If you think about a team's budget in the NFL, they allocate a certain percentage, if you will, of the cap to different position groups, right? That's why you don't see teams having 2 highly paid safeties. That's usually not how that works. The quarterback room is already filled, and it's primarily filled with a guy not on the team anymore. So toss in Jarrett Stidham's money, and then you want to add another free agent quarterback's money. I don't see a way Denver spends big in free agency at quarterback. No way they can get a guy like Kirk Cousins. I don't even think they could afford a Gardner Minshew or a Jacoby Brissett. They got to lower their sights to a Jamus Winston or a Sam Darnold. 2 guys that were backups last year that maybe Denver can get on a discount, and Sean Payton feels like one man's trash is another man's treasure. We can get some good play. You go back to 2022 for Sam Darnold, the last time he really was a starter after being Brock Purdy's backup this past season. He played and started in 6 games for the Panthers in that awful year with Baker and PJ Walker, and he played kind of well. Like, he kind of had that team moving towards the end of the season. 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I have heard really positive updates, if you will, on Sam Darnold after being a backup for the 49ers, and I would not be surprised if Sean Payton goes, this is my next best option, at least to bring in some competition for Jarrett Stidham and not just hand him the job without any sort of battle in training camp, which there absolutely should be. 5th and final option for 2024. This one seems like a major long shot, but you never quite know. I'll toss in Justin Fields. I don't think Justin Fields fits what Sean Payton is looking for in a quarterback, but if Justin Fields' market maybe dries up a little bit, right? What if, for example, the Vikings let Kirk Cousins walk, they draft a quarterback, and Atlanta signs Kirk Cousins, and the Pittsburgh Steelers sign Russell Wilson? All of a sudden, a lot of the Justin Fields' initial believed destinations are off the radar. Maybe Denver calls and say, well, we weren't going to trade for Fields because we didn't want to give up a 2nd or a 3rd round pick for him. We don't have our 2nd rounder, but if the offer's gone down or the price has gone down, then yeah, we can play ball with that. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think it's got a greater than 0% chance of happening. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on, like a lazy eye. I would not think this is a very prominent possibility. I think these 2 are much more likely, but it is the National Football League. You never quite know. So who will start week 1 for the Broncos? Don't be afraid. Scroll on down and let me know. Shoot your shot. We will revisit this come September. See who got it right. See who got it wrong. Personally, I'm rolling with Jarrett Stidham. He's the starter right now. They may very well draft a quarterback that's a high enough pick to compete with Jarrett Stidham, and maybe that guy wins the job in training camp. But I think Jarrett Stidham has this job going into OTAs, going into mandatory minicamp, going into the first day of training camp. And unless someone else takes it from him, it is his going into September. So we'll have to wait and see. That will do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. The Russell Wilson era is over. It's not a surprise. We saw this coming for quite some time. But, I mean, still, once the news dropped, it was, it pulled on the heartstrings a little bit. It's an era of Broncos football that no one wants to remember. But it's over. And now we hope that the next one's going to be a lot better.